Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Mindful in Minutes podcast. So I thought we could kind of do two different things today. One is sort of just like a life update. I haven't done this in a long time, and I don't know, I just feel like there's a lot going on behind the scenes, or at least a lot going on in my mind that I'm thinking about, contemplating, that I kind of wanted to share. And then I also wanted to share some notes on confidence. So since it is Leo season and Sunday's meditation is going to be a daily confidence meditation, which I'm really excited about that one, I wanted to share some confidence tips or thoughts around confidence as well. But I thought we could start with some life updates. We can get caught up. I want to hear what everyone has been up to. I've actually been having a really good time seeing what people are up to. Like, I answer my DMs, like chatting with people. I don't know. I love chatting with you guys. Two things that I want to say right off the bat. One, I guess my first update is I'm sure you can hear it, I'm sick. I don't know what disease pork chop picked up. And anyone who either is a parent or hangs out around toddlers or little kids, there is like a specific breed of like toddler sickness that a 3-year-old can bounce back from in like, I don't know, 5 to 7 days. But when you get it as an adult, I have been sick for over a week, and I feel like each day I'm only getting sicker. And I don't know how that's happening. And I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to be doing, drinking my coconut water, staying hydrated, trying to rest as much as I can. I'm trying all the things. And I feel like every day I just wake up a little bit sicker, but I don't know, it's not COVID. I don't have a fever. It's just kind of like weird generic toddler cold. That has absolutely just blasted me. So I know for some of us, we hate like a lot of vocal fry and kind of that nasally sound. I rarely record an episode on the day that it's supposed to be out, but I am recording this one on the 31st in the morning. I pushed it as far as I possibly could because I was like, maybe every single day my voice will be a little bit better. And it is, this is big voice improvement compared to what it was earlier in the week. So as, I'm playing with fire a little bit and hoping, knock on wood, all of the, that the tech gods are on my side here on this one. Because I don't like to leave it until the last minute. That's just not really my style. But that's the first update, as we have all been sick, because also he definitely picked something up like in an airport because we just got back from our family vacation, which I want to talk about because it's a really good one, but also some snafus. And I learned a lot about myself actually during that vacation. And so I want to share that. But on our way back, pork chop definitely just like picked up some weird like virus in an airport. And then it's always like you get one kid that's like the epicenter of the disease, and then it slowly starts to impact everyone. So Poppy's gotten it. My husband got it, but he's already kind of bouncing back, and it seems to have hit me the hardest. But yeah, that's the first update, is that we have been sick around here. And so I apologize for the state of my gunky, nasally, scraggly voice for this episode. Right before this, actually, I had my monthly live Patreon class. So I do like a yoga class and then a live meditation, and I focused on like lymphatic drainage and immunity boosting. And I'm actually feeling a little bit better after doing that. I think just kind of getting my body moving, stimulating those lymph nodes actually helped. So that was kind of like a twofold. I got to treat my patrons to their monthly live class, and then also my body's feeling just a little bit better. So that's the first update, is that we have been sick and we've been ill. I also want to say off the bat, I think anytime I put life updates in the title of the podcast episode, I'm always like announcing a pregnancy. I am not announcing a pregnancy in this. The womb room, as I call her, she is empty, and I am absolutely fine with that. I am still getting my pink back, if you will, from Miss Poppy, and figuring out how to juggle the 2 kids. So anyone who saw that and was like, oh, Kelly only posts updates when she's pregnant, that's not what's happening here. No babies going on in the womb room right now. So the first update is I wanted to share a little bit about our family vacation. And I know I talk about my kids, but I don't always share like a ton about my personal life per se. I try to keep it more focused on like the meditation, the education, the learning, all of that. But I have to say, like, this family vacation was so good. We went to Scotland. I love Scotland. I realized a few things about life, about myself. Also, I will say that traveling with 2 kids versus 1 kid was definitely extra work. It was a lot, but of both kids, Poppy is always just like the coolest cucumber of the bunch. Like other than the airplane situation, because she is just 9 months. And so she wants to be like moving around. She's not old enough. Like Pork Chop's going to be 4 this fall. So he's happy to kind of just like watch an iPad and eat some snacks and, kind of let the time pass without too much chaos. Where Poppy only wanted me to hold her, but then also wanted to be moving around. But then like the seatbelt sign was on. It's just a whole thing. So I would say that the flight portion with the baby was harder than the toddler, but then the actual trip part was trickier with the toddler just because Pork Chop has like so many opinions, but he was so excited. We had been hyping up Scotland for like a month. My mom had gotten him some like board books. So anyone traveling with kids, whatever your destination is, and I never thought we would be the type of family that would have like the 1 yearly family vacation. I figured just because like I traveled a lot that maybe I would continue to do that, and you don't know what you don't know. I didn't know that wouldn't be like super sustainable, at least for me and my family. Once I started having kids, and of course it was like COVID, so I wasn't traveling for a while, and just the logistics of like bringing kids and work travel, all of that. So we seem to have kind of landed into like a one bigger family trip a year kind of a thing. So this one was ours, and Pork Chop was reading all these books. He was so excited. We listened to like bagpipe music for like a month. Anytime we were in the car, he's like, let's listen to bagpipes. And so the Bagpipers Master Spotify playlist that now probably has jumped in the charts because Pork Chop and I had listened to it like so many times. He was just like really excited, and we were reading books about, they have cute kids books about like the Loch Ness Monster that he calls Nessie Baby, because one of them is called Nessie Baby. And so I think this was the first trip that we took where we like could really hype him up, and he really understood like what was going on, and he was excited about certain things and couldn't wait to see the bagpipers and see Loch Ness and all of that. And it just made it like more fun for me too. And it just reaffirmed that no matter what you enjoy as an adult, it's been really special. Like for me, it's travel. I love travel. I love sharing places with other people, but it's just been a really cool experience to share something that I loved with the people that I love. And anyone who is a parent or, whatever it is, whether it's like music or travel or, I don't know, knitting, like things that you enjoy, it's really extra special to then share something that you love with like your little kids. And so this was the first trip that it really felt like Pork Chop kind of like got it and was like into the travel thing. And I will say little kids, I don't think they're impacted. This is like the top question I get is how did the kids do with jet lag and the time change? I don't think they really are as deeply impacted as like the adults because they don't really know. So they'll usually sleep on the plane, at least for a little bit. And I think they know like it's nighttime when we get on the plane. And then when they wake up the next morning, we've landed. And even though it's technically like, 2 a.m. back home, they're like, oh, the sun is up and it's morning time. And they might be like tired, but I don't think they really understand like time zones or time change, or they just know I went to bed at night and I woke up in the morning, which is what I usually do. And I feel like they bounce back the fastest from jet lag and time change. Now, a few things that I learned about myself on this trip. So basically what we did was we went to Edinburgh for a handful of days, and then we went to the Isle of Mull, which I'd never been to. And it was beautiful. I think that was like one of the highlights of my trip was the Isle of Mull. It was just so beautiful. We stayed in this like little lodge, and it was run by this really sweet couple. They were so kind to us, so accommodating, really sweet. Like every morning we had like a girls' room because my mom came with us. We had like a girls' room, which was like me, my mom, and Poppy. And then like the boys had a room because one time we did like all 5 of us in the same room. It was chaotic. The kids kept waking ourselves up, whatever. So like the girls would come down for breakfast and they're like, oh, good morning. They knew Poppy's like IRL name. But they're like, oh, good morning, Poppy. How are you? And they knew like what we'd, order her like some porridge for breakfast. And they'd be like, and what will the little missus have for breakfast this morning? Will it be porridge? They were just so sweet and so kind. We had a great time there. So yeah, Isle Mole, a 10 out of 10. Actually, I would say our whole trip was an 8 out of 10. The trip itself was a 10 out of 10. There were two things that knocked off a couple of points. And they were both kind of weird logistical things. One was when we went to pick up our rental car to go to the Isle Mole. We showed up at the rental car desk and we had to wait for 3 hours. And then finally, after 3 hours, they admitted that they just like didn't have a car. They're like, we don't have your car. And I was like, what do you mean you don't have our car? I was like, I booked it. I paid for it. Like, what do you mean? Where's the car? And then they were like, why don't you just go into town? We'd already been like in the city for, a while. They're like, just go into town, have a lunch, come back. Maybe we'll have a car then. And I was like, I don't know how much I trust that there's going to be a car here. And so I ended up going across the way and having to like last minute like rent a day of rental car. That was like kind of stressful because we had all the kids there, all of our luggage, everything. We're there for like 3 hours. And then they were like, we don't have a car. And I was just like, that's interesting. So that was really tricky. So we're not going to point off for that one. Also, in that rental car, when we were driving up to the Isle of Mole, Porkchop got car sick and we had a little puke situation. So I guess we'll give that like, half a point off at least for that. Because, nothing says family road trip like one of the kids getting sick. And then definitely we get a point taken off because on our way home, we changed in Boston and we got swept up in that like airplane software glitch. We thought we were in the clear because our flight we were supposed to go the day after all the chaos started. And our flight from Edinburgh to Boston went off without a hitch on time, everything, no problems. Then we got to Boston and our short little flight from Boston to Minneapolis, it just got canceled. And we were totally stranded. Delta, who I'm very loyal to, but they are not on the top of my favorites list right now because they didn't help us with literally anything. Our luggage was stuck, and this has nothing to do with like the Delta employees. Like I can only imagine, like when things like this happen, and there's so many people, like because multiple flights got canceled all at once, and they said, okay, go to gate 17, and they'll help. The team there will help get you sorted out. The team was one individual, and I am not exaggerating at all. The line, by the time we got there, and we got there like right away, was at least 400 people for this one person. It's like, okay, we're just basically like never getting home. And they didn't help with anything. We had the kids, so we had to kind of figure out how to, get a hotel. And then we can't just call an Uber because we need car seats. And our luggage was lost for about 2.5 hours. They finally found it somewhere in the back. And we had it was definitely worst case scenario. What was our 2-week trip ended up being about 2.5 weeks because we were stuck in Boston for a handful of days. And then eventually I had to just buy new tickets on a completely different airline. And that's how we eventually got home. And I have yet to really hear anything from Delta. So we're definitely taking a point off for that because that was really tough. And we're like tired. We'd had the long flight. I was like sitting on the floor of like Boston Logan Airport baggage claim with like a boobie out trying to feed Emma. And there's all this chaos. I was just like, wow, this is not what I anticipated. And it's just trickier when you have like 2 little kids. If it was just me and my husband, or even me, my husband, and my mom, we'd be like, okay, like not ideal, but we can just wait it out. And at baggage claim, we can just take an Uber, find a hotel, whatever. There's just so many more logistical pieces with the kids. We're taking a point off for that one. But the actual like content of the trip was like a total 10 out of 10. Scotland is amazing. I hadn't been actually since my honeymoon, which was 9 years ago. And so we wanted to come back. This trip was extra special for us because Poppy, her middle name is named after a place in Scotland that is really special to us. And so we actually took Poppy to visit that place, and it was just really cool. It was really special. We picked her middle name because Scotland was the place where we did our honeymoon, and then this name had kind of been on like our girl list name, but yeah, and it was a place in Scotland, so we took her to go see this place that she was named after, which was just really cool and special. I was supposed to be in Scotland March of 2020. Obviously that didn't happen, and I would have been like super sick with pork chop anyways, but it was just special to go back, and it just reaffirmed how excited I am to do a retreat there in May, because there's something about the energy of Scotland in particular. Everyone there's so kind. It's so warm. It's so comforting. It has this like really kind of like grounded, like motherly energy. It's beautiful. And I don't know. It's really a special place. And every time I go there, I feel like I leave a happier, better person, which leads me to one of the things that I learned about myself, which was I didn't realize how much being in this postpartum period with Poppy had been weighing me down, specifically the routine of it all. So my experience with postpartum both times has been very different in terms of like my postpartum anxiety, just a lot of different factors. The thing that's the same for me both times is it's the same thing every day, over and over and over. And when I'm in the thick of it, I don't feel like I mind it that much. But then when I finally like get out and do anything that's different, see something different, even if I'm still getting up in the middle of the night to feed babies, I'm doing it in a different place, in a different bed. And I feel like this trip did more for my mental health than like anything I've done in the past like 10 months. And maybe that sounds crazy, but it's true. Like I feel like even though we had, rental car situations, toddlers puking, illness, being stranded in Boston, all of that, I came back a better person from this trip because I just broke out of the routine. And that is always the toughest part for me when I'm in what I lovingly call the troll hole. And, the first few months, it's like you're just kind of like feeding your baby and you're in survival mode, all that. I don't mind those first kind of 4 months postpartum. Even, and then when I kind of hit that 4 to 6 month mark, I'm like, okay, this is kind of, I've been doing this for like 6 months now, but I still don't really have the space to do a lot more. And then kind of the 6 to 8, 9 month, I start to get like a little bit antsy. And so this trip came at the perfect time. And I just felt like, I don't know, it's just like taking a big deep breath. And it felt so good to see different things, do different things. All of it, just be out of the routine. It felt amazing. And Scotland's one of my favorite places. So I'm thrilled to go back already. I'm like already counting down the days to get to go back in May. So if you want to join me, you can join me on that. Information's in the show notes, but I'm not sharing this because I'm trying to like plug the retreat. But Scotland is so, so magical. Another thing that I learned about myself is I need to expect less of myself in the postpartum period when I'm trying to plan things. I am a planner. It comes down to like when I do retreats and everything. I have itineraries. I have plans. I have everything linked, all this stuff. When I was planning this trip, and it's a lot to plan like a 2-week international vacation for 5 people. That's a lot. But I kept trying to do it in these tiny little bits and pieces. I would sit down to try to plan something and a kid would need something. I'd revisit it a few days later, another kid would do something. I made a lot of little silly mistakes. Dinner reservations I thought I made and I'd put in the doc, but apparently never actually got around to hitting save or book or whatever. Little things like that. And I found myself, instead of getting frustrated myself, in the moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I was disappointed because I was like, I really wanted to eat at this restaurant and, now I can't get in, whatever. But realizing that I need to be kinder and softer with myself and that I can't expect myself, and I say this all the time, don't compare an old version of yourself to a current situation version of yourself. And I can't expect myself to be able to pull off the same level of detail-oriented planning when I probably started planning this trip when maybe Poppy was 4 or 5 months postpartum. I can't expect the same level of detail to be able to be executed when I'm 4 months postpartum with my second child than I could, when we did our baby moon and I was, pregnant and pork chop was 2 and all of that, or even the level of detailing, planning I can do like for a retreat, which also I have, Danielle at Adventure to help me with all of that. She's the logistics manager. She's phenomenal. And there were just a lot of kind of little silly mistakes that I made. And it just was really eye-opening to me that I need to be more upfront with myself as to what I can take on and what I can't take on. And also that I need to carve out, if there's something I really need to work on, I need to carve out uninterrupted time to do it. It does not help my ADHD to constantly be interrupted, needing to do different things for kids. And I just really learned that about myself. The other thing that I learned about myself is that I need to switch up my routine. Like when I go to Iceland in October, which I'm really excited to do that, I was feeling a little bit like, oh my gosh, it's coming up so fast. It's going to be hard to leave the kids. All that is so true. It is still going to be hard to leave the kids. But seeing what changing up the routine, seeing a different place, doing something different, connecting with different people, what that did for my well-being and my mental health, it was like, okay, you know what? I'm feeling really excited about Iceland in October. And I would like to one day have a third child. And so when if I'm lucky enough to have that happen, when I hit that, third postpartum period, there's things I'm going to do differently to try to take care of myself better that I didn't realize I needed the first time and I didn't realize I needed the second time. And I feel like each time I get a little bit better at caring for myself during that postpartum period. But yeah, I just learned a lot about myself, and also just to roll with the punches, and that the universe is going to, take care of everything, that things may not go the way that you planned, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to go badly or that it can't, end up being a good time or a great time. We were stranded, like I said, in Boston, and we ended up having, this full kind of kid day in Boston. And I had just posted, on Instagram, I was like, help, send me your recommendations. And so many of you sent these really sweet recommendations for what to do, like with the kids. And we had like the best day. It was one of the best days we had on our whole vacation. Just this impromptu, went to the aquarium, went to the children's museum. Like, it was just an awesome, awesome day. And it was unexpected. It definitely maybe wasn't ideal circumstances, but it was a great day. And so it was a reminder that even if something isn't happening the way that it's supposed to or the way I had planned, doesn't mean it isn't going to be great. So I learned all of that about myself on this vacation, and then just also how special and like soul nourishing it is to share something that you love with someone that you love. And that goes both ways. So if someone is trying to engage with you and share something that they love with you, keep an open mind, keep an open heart, and engage with it. I tried to ask my husband, he's really into gardening, and he hasn't I think it's great that he's gardening. I don't know that much about it. I'm certainly, you don't want me to, be planting anything, caring for anything, but he's really great at it. And he was telling me about, he had this onion from his garden, and he was obviously trying to share this gardening thing that he loved with me. And it's not my first choice in hobby, but remembering how special it was to share something that I loved with the people that I loved, it gave me a new perspective too, to make sure that if someone's trying to share something that they love with me, to be receptive of it, because it feels really good to share something that you love with someone that they love and then have them engage in it. So, I was asking questions about the onion that he grew because I wanted to be engaged and say, hey, tell me about this. Like, you love it. I want to be engaged in it. So those are kind of things that I learned over what ended up being, like, honestly, like the entire month of July, like away or off, which leads into some of my other updates or things that I've been thinking about. And that is that I have been having a tougher time balancing. I don't want to say work-life balance, because I don't think work-life balance really exists, right? I've told you about my pizza theory, where it's like you have this pizza, it's a finite amount of things that you can give every day. There's 8 slices in that pizza. Different parts of your life will eat up that pizza, and before you know it, the pizza's gone. And then when it's gone, it's gone. You have to start again the next day. But I have been having a harder time balancing, even though I planned my schedule where I could really focus on just being a mom this summer. But there's still that part of me that loves to be doing and creating and all of that. And I've been having a hard time finding kind of that sweet spot, that harmonious balance, or that harmony between the two. And I don't think I've really found it. And I think I've landed on a place of just being okay with not necessarily feeling like I've found that harmony, but just having awareness of like, ooh, this is kind of a tricky thing for me. So when I'm meditating, things like that, sitting with that discomfort, asking for guidance, being okay with not having all the answers. But that's been a thing I've kind of been struggling with lately. That and the fact that Pork Chop is starting preschool in September. And I don't know about you, if you've been with me for a long time, maybe this is how it feels for me. It feels like I was just telling you guys that I was going to become a mom. And now Pork Chop is about to start preschool. And like yesterday, I was filling out all this paperwork, all these things. I was on Etsy. I was going to order him one of those like first day of school signs I can fill out every year. And then I was at my co-working space and I was like getting teary-eyed because it was just so much emotion, good, bad, ugly, tricky, all of that, of just like, how did this happen? How is he so big that he's going to be in school? Because a friend of mine, Ashley Sondergaard, who you've heard on this podcast before, she has 3 kids. So she is like my mama leader when I need someone. I'm like, I need some mom support. She's definitely one of the first ones that I go to. And she said, because I'd asked her, like, I feel like a lot of my friends are kind of getting their kids started like earlier in preschool than we are. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And she was like, you know what? When your kids start school, there's no turning back. They will be in school for the majority of their lives, at least for the first quarter of their life. Pretty much like 85% of that will be spent in school. So what's the rush? Not that we're like delaying it, but pork chop's also a fall birthday, pork chop and Poppy. So they'll be like a little bit older to start things anyways. But yeah, that really resonated with me. I was like, you know what? Once a kid starts school, that's it. Then they're doing school, which is great and beautiful. But now that's happening, and in 5 weeks, pork chop's gonna be starting that like school journey. I just have so many like emotions around that, and I want it to go well for him, and I know that it's a good step, and just I don't know, just so many feelings. And so I don't have any regret for really scaling back this summer and focusing on my kids, because it's our last summer before this school season starts in my household. And we've been having a really great time, like a really great time. And I also want to make sure to just take a moment to like acknowledge the privilege that I have and like how lucky I am to have a job that affords me such flexibility. And I know that that is something that not many people have, and that there are a lot of people who would love to be able to take a 2-week vacation with their kids, or, be at home more with them, whatever it is. So I just know that that is something that I feel so fortunate for, that is on my mind. I think about it often. And yeah, I just, that's something that I've been thinking about a lot as well, as I'm kind of navigating this particular season of, what do I want life to look like? What do I want kind of this work and family harmony situation to look like? Is something that's always on the forefront of my mind is, wow, like how lucky I am to even be able to get to question that. And yeah, just again, like how lucky and, privileged and all that I am to be able to even contemplate that question. And so I it's something that when I make gratitude lists, and, or, I do a lot of gratitude practice at the end of the day. And it's something that comes up often, is just that my job, even though sometimes it can be tricky, because, when you work for yourself, you technically, can take as much unpaid time off as you want, but then also, every day that you take off potentially can negatively impact your future success or endeavors or whatever it is. But that I also, because I work for myself, have this immense flexibility. And so I'm able to, fill in childcare gaps, to be able to go on vacation, to be able to just block off pork chop's first day of preschool and know that I'll be able to be there. All of those things, I feel really just so fortunate. So I wanted to make sure to, to call that out as well. And another thing that I've been feeling really grateful for is that the kids have gotten closer. The trip really brought them closer together. That's been one of the hardest parts, going from one kid to two, is pork chop has struggled to kind of, he always has a big heart and he loves his sister, but he definitely has had a trickier time accepting his role as a big brother. He had very strong only child energy. We love that for him, but it's taken him a while to come around. And, there's nothing like a family vacation that just forces everyone to be together nonstop for 2 weeks. They really did start to come together, which is like so special, and just made my heart like explode with happiness. So I don't know, pork chop's getting ready to start preschool. I have feelings about that. I've been thinking a lot about it, sitting with those feelings and asking myself, why am I feeling this way? Trying to unpack it during meditation practice. So yeah, there's that. Also, I can't believe that tomorrow is August. I don't know how that happened. I'm still like back in like May, but now it's August. Let's see. I made some notes because I knew that when I started sharing life updates, I could just sit here and talk your ear off, because, I'm a Gemini. I love to chat. I could just fill you in on life for forever, but I want to make sure that we also get to the confidence piece. So looking at my notes, another thing that I wanted to touch on was actually my friend Gina, who you just heard on this month's kind of friendship episode with Past Lives 101, which I've been loving how much you guys are loving those episodes, and like hearing from my friends and learning about different things. I've been having a lot of fun with it too. Gina told me this thing the other day where she was like, I feel like life is like a trampoline, that sometimes the momentum is propelling you up And then at a certain point, that momentum, gravity's going to get you and you will start going back down. But if you can just keep your balance for a second before you know it, you're going to be propelled back up again. And that has really stuck with me about how it really is like that, where, sometimes the trampoline of life is propelling you up. Sometimes you're, going down, kind of decompressing into the trampoline, but eventually it's going to propel you back up. And that just really stuck with me. So I wanted to share that in case that resonates with anyone else, because I've kind of been thinking, I'm like, am I in an upswing, a downswing? Am I in that moment of balance, waiting for the tides to turn? I don't know. But I've been thinking about that. Something that has been bopping around in my brain, and I want your guys' help with actually two things that have been bopping around in my brain. We are embarking on the 500th episode of Mindful in Minutes. If anyone has any fun ideas for something that we could do, I was actually thinking like a fun live event could be really cool, maybe like a one day or like a weekend retreat. We could do like the live recording of the 500th episode, something like in the US, not necessarily like an international thing. Do we do like a virtual retreat? What do we do? If anyone has any really like fun ideas, just like DM me on Instagram, because I want to do something fun. The podcast is going to turn 7 in October. And then I think the 500th episode will fall either in like late December, early January, as long as like the posting schedule doesn't get mixed up. And I want to do something fun. So if anyone has like any inspired ideas, let me know. So there's that. And then the other thing that has been bopping around in my brain, a little bit of context on this one. Earlier this summer, I saw my psychic's psychic. I don't do psychics a lot. I love them. And I love, I think there are people that are like truly gifted. And that's any field, right? Like there's doctors that are great. And then there's doctors that are, I'm putting doctors in like, quotation marks, people, they're any field. There's people that are phenomenal, and there's people that you're like, I think you're kind of full of baloney. Think of anyone right now listening in your profession. Think about what you do. Does this apply to your profession? I feel like it kind of does. It applies to mine. It applies to psychics. But anyways, so there's this one psychic, Natalie, who I usually see. She's been on hiatus. And as I was kind of navigating this sort of, what do I want to do? What direction do I want to go in? Helping to clarify some thoughts and messages, all of that. I was like, you know what? I need to get Natalie on the horn. And she actually kind of predicted, and I'm a little bit wary to sort of share this story because I actually met someone who's very near and dear to my heart, and they actually had a psychic addiction. Like they poured a lot of money into psychics and would make a lot of their decisions just based on what these psychics were saying. And I had never met someone that had suffered from that before. And hearing her story was really eye-opening. And so I want to say I only do this sparingly, and also never let anyone else tell you what to do over like your own intuition, your guides, your research, your decisions. That always supersedes anything else. Whether it's a psychic, whether it's me telling you something, whoever it is, you are always your own best guide. But every once in a while, I do like to dabble in the psychics. I actually first started dabbling in this because I once saw an unexplainable kind of like floating orb situation thing on Pork Chop's monitor when he was little. And I was like, and it was not dust. It was unusual, kind of light anomaly. And I was like, okay, I need to get to the bottom of this because I don't want any, bad energies. I didn't think it was bad, but I was like, I need a little clarification as to what's floating around, Pork Chop's crib while he's sleeping. So then I actually texted Gina and Ashley and some of my other woo-woo friends, and I said, hey, who has a good psychic recommendation? And they both said Natalie. So I was like, okay. And Natalie was phenomenal. She predicted my books and the topic of the books even well before this was even like a possibility. We were having this session and she was like, I was telling her about the orb, and she was like, oh yeah, that's your grandma. It's good. She's watching over Pork Chop. And we kind of wrapped that up, in like 2 minutes. Then we just started talking about stuff, and she really predicted like these books and a lot of things that ended up happening for me way down the line. And so since I was feeling like, okay, I could use a little guidance, I need a little clarification, and I want to bounce some ideas off of people, I tried to get Natalie, and Natalie was like, oh, I'm still on hiatus, but this is the information for my psychic. And I was like, okay, well, if it's my psychic, she has to be good, right? So I was like, all right, now I'm going to get Jenny on the horn because Natalie is on hiatus. I'm telling you guys, it has been a wild summer over here. So I was chatting with Jenny, and I was just kind of sharing, how I was feeling. And I asked her if, there was anyone who wanted to, whether it be my guides or, past loved ones, anyone who wanted to, just help clarify or give me some guidance in this particular season of life where I was feeling a little bit stuck as to professionally where I want to really focus my energy. Because right now I have all these ideas, all these things that I want to pursue. And I've always been an idea generator, and I love what I do so much, and I want to just do all of these things, but I just don't necessarily have the time to do it. And I was describing this feeling, and I was like, Daddy, my guides want to kind of give me like a priority list as to like which one is like worth my time and effort, which one isn't. And she said this really interesting thing where she said, I have no idea what it is, but when I look at your career, I see it as a tree. And the different things that you've been doing, it's like this tree is growing different limbs. Like you become an author, it's, grown this new limb. When you started the podcast, this tree, it grew new limb. Like the trunk is the same and strong, steady, all of that. But over time, you're growing these other limbs. And she said, I see a new limb coming, and I have no idea what it is, but I do see a new limb coming. And she said, I would have much more clarity come September. So I'm kind of like, oh, okay. And I know you don't have to be psychic to know that if you aren't quite sure what direction you want to go, that give it a few months and maybe you'll have more clarity. But she said September with like such certainty. And I was like, that's interesting. But anyway, so since I've been feeling kind of lost, her advice via my guides was basically just be patient, sit with it. Something new is going to pop up. And I've been doing that all summer. And the thing that keeps coming back to me, and this is where I need it's not even your help, but your optional participation if you want. I've been feeling really pulled to help support other podcasters. And I've been hesitant to do that just because I know that to have a podcast, it's going to be 7 years of podcasting. That is like truly geriatric in the podcasting world. I remember when I first started, people were like, what's a podcast? And I know that there's so many I heard some stat, there's like 4 million active podcasts right now because a lot of podcasts, they're either have a set amount of episodes or they come and they go. But I think I saw a stat, there's like 4 million active podcasts right now. And something that I love doing, it's what sparked my meditation teacher training, all my trainings. I love spending years and years and years doing something trial and error, making mistakes, fumbling through something blindly, and then years later on the back end, using hindsight to say, okay, what was the actual useful stuff? What worked? What didn't work? Put it together and have it be like more pertinent. And I'm feeling kind of pulled and compelled to start, I don't know if it's like a podcast mentorship. I don't think it's a podcast training. That doesn't quite feel right or in alignment with what my heart is being pulled to do. But I am thinking about doing something to help other specifically independent, maybe women. No, I'm not going to exclude men from here. But independent podcasters, because it has gotten harder and harder and harder to be an independent podcaster. When I started out, everyone was an independent podcaster. There weren't really podcast networks that existed. And I have been invited before to be a part of podcast networks. I've always said no. The reason being is because I don't want to give up any of the autonomy over my show. And so, part of me is like, oh, I don't know, should I not share this idea? Because I don't want someone else to take it and run with it. But like, I never really worry about that too much, because even if someone else does something, they never do it quite the way that like you would do it, you envision it. But I almost envision creating something, whether it's like an anti-network network where it's for like truly smaller indie podcasts that want to be a part of kind of more of like a podcast like collective where they can like support one another. We can get together. We can talk about like what's working, what's not working. I can, offer mentorship as well, help with some of like the back end stuff, like even things, I know sometimes on this podcast people get annoyed. They're like, why do you run ads? But podcasting is so much work, and so many independent podcasters, not only are they doing it for free, for many of them, it costs them money. It costs them a ton of time, a ton of effort, and they're putting their own hard work, earned money into creating and producing something that people listen to for free. And I want to help other people. It's not just about like the monetization piece, but I've been feeling really pulled to help other independent podcasters. It is hard. Like even myself, I don't submit myself for any like podcasting awards or anything like that anymore because it's super expensive. You probably won't win unless you're a part of like a network. It's just the landscape is really changing. And I'm just feeling this pull that maybe the new branch may not necessarily be a meditation thing. Not that any of this is going away. I'm just kind of, shooting the breeze with you guys here. 40 minutes later, I'm kind of wondering, maybe I should make this like a 2-part episode, do life updates and then confidence stuff later. We'll see how long this ends up shaking out to be. But feeling pulled to create a space and where other independent podcasters can come together, can be supported, maybe have a little bit of a network feel without giving up any of the autonomy over their show, without saying you have to release this many episodes a month or saying you need to start running ads on your show if that doesn't align, and have an education piece with it as well, where it's kind of like other independent podcasters supporting one another, collaborating, doing, meetups, things like that. It's kind of this vision that I've been sitting with for the majority of the summer, and I'm starting to form it a little bit more. And I'm wondering if that's maybe the new limb that's going to pop up. So your optional participation would be if you are an independent podcaster and you're listening to this, because I also want to pull in other experts. Like I've had people who have helped me like exclusively be a guest on other people's show, and they are specifically like a podcast booker. Like I want to bring them in and be like, what makes for a really great guest, or what are some best practices for being on other people's shows, or what collaborations work. Like other people that I know that work in really specific kind of podcast niches, like pull them in and have them share some wisdom with us, that kind of thing. So if you're an independent podcaster listening to this and you're like, I love this idea, just send me an email or send me a DM. It's nothing I'm acting on quite yet, but it's something that I'm really intrigued by. And I keep getting these little pushes and nudges and like, honestly, these signs that this is maybe something that I should pursue. And then we know that, my psychic said, September, I'll have more clarity. But yeah, I don't know. So that's that. I have truly just been talking your ear off. So if you're still here, thank you for that. I think that's like the majority of the updates. One last thing that I had in here, piggybacking off of this new idea, I've always just known that if I just keep the door open and I don't keep a super specific, any of my creators out there, anyone following a dream, I urge you to challenge yourself to not have a really specific plan or a really specific vision of exactly what your dream is going to look like. Because I think sometimes if you get so narrow, you close yourself off to other possibilities that could be incredible. So I do have like a framework, a blueprint that I go off of, but I always keep the door open to things that feel right. So, 5 years ago, I never would have really given a second thought to this idea that I'm having now. Been like, oh, that's interesting, but like definitely not for now. But I wouldn't close it off for forever. Writing a book, or when I started Meditation Mama, like I never would have thought I would have done a second podcast. These types of things that it's like, you know what? Just keep the door open to opportunities, to possibilities, to ideas, because you never know what's going to be the big thing. So have a blueprint. Don't go in totally blind, but also like don't close all the doors and say, okay, this is the one thing that I'm doing. I'm not going to deviate from this ever. Like keep an open mind as well. Keep a door open, if you will, to new ideas and possibilities, because those are honestly some of the best things that come through, are kind of like out of the blue and fall in your lap. And you're like, this is really interesting. Okay. Transitioning into Leo season and confidence. This is something I've been hearing a lot about from all of you. I also feel like the older I get, the more confident that I get, but mostly the more comfortable I become with who I am, the way I show up, that, it's what you see is what you get with me. And I feel fine with that. And I've been hearing because as I get older, that innately means that my new listeners will be a lot younger than me. That's just how things go. As time passes, as I get older and new people discover the podcast, they're probably going to be younger than me. So I want to share some of my notes on confidence tips, thoughts, tricks, etc., etc. And then Sunday's meditation is a confidence meditation. The reason I wanted to explore this now is because it is Leo season. So Leo is I happen to be a Leo rising, so it is in my chart, which I'm going to have an astrologist come and do like an astrology 101 for us. It's coming up later, I think in the fall, October, November. But basically, Leo is like the sign that's ruled by the sun. So it's all about being seen. It's like the lion, roaring, big, bold energy, confident. And I love a Leo. My husband happens to be a Leo. A lot of my really good friends are Leos. They seem to really gravitate towards Leos or Scorpios. But anyways, this is all about like being bold, being seen, stepping into the light, being confident. So I thought this is the perfect time. If we're already kind of feeling that energy, let's talk about confidence. So a few things that I have stopped doing that have improved my confidence. The first one, just stop comparing yourself to others. I know it's hard. I know that it's hard. We're not going to want to do it. It's really easy. It's tempting to go on social media, to meet up with your friends, to hear about what everyone is doing. Comparison truly is the thief of joy. It's also the thief of confidence, because someone will always be doing something better than you. Someone will always be doing something worse than you. I don't think I was ever plagued more than with comparisonitis than when I was graduating college and all I wanted to do was be a yoga teacher. And I was so scared to tell everyone because I mean, they were really judgmental of it at the time, and they were like flexing their muscles. Oh, I got this 5-year contract with this software company and I'm moving to this place to pursue this job. I got my dream job right out of college. Oh, I'm going to go get my PhD, whatever it is. It felt like everyone was doing these big, awesome, prestigious things. And I was just comparing their journey, their dreams to my journey and my dream. And I felt like mine didn't measure up to theirs. What I didn't realize at the time is that it was very much just different lanes. Different lanes. Like if our dreams were trains, we're going 2 different places on 2 different tracks. Both of them are trains. Both of them are great. They're just different. And I was so scared to follow my dream because I was comparing it to others. And I didn't feel like in my own heart that my dream somehow measured up to someone else's. All dreams are equal. All dreams are great. It may not be your dream. It may not be something you would want to pursue. Doesn't mean it's not great for them. Doesn't mean it's not awesome. It doesn't mean that your dream is less than someone else's dream. The less you compare yourself to others, the more confident you will become and the more self-assured you will become. I promise you. This can look like, simple, easy steps, less social media time. Shave off even 10 minutes a day. Practice saying things like, thank you. I'm really proud of that achievement. Instead of, oh, like when my book was coming out, people would be like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. I don't know how you do it all. My first response would be like, oh, well, I'm not really doing it all. I do this, I have this, and this, and this, and this. I stopped doing that. I just kept saying, thank you so much for saying that. I feel really proud of this accomplishment. Practice saying things like that. Stop comparing yourself to others. Practice saying things like, wow, that's a really cool dream that you have. Like, wow, I'm really excited that that's happening for you. And you can be excited for something happening for someone else. And your dream can also be valid. And you also can be doing what you want to do. Surround yourself with people who support your growth and your well-being, your everything. Just surround yourself with those people. If that means your circle gets smaller, perfectly fine. Let it get smaller. Surround yourself with people who support your growth, your well-being, your dream, your existence. Again, if that means your circle gets smaller, great, let it get smaller. There's nothing better, in my opinion. I would rather 100 times over, every single day, I would rather have a small circle of beautiful, supportive, uplifting people that I feel better after I interact with them than a huge circle with all these people where I didn't feel like I could be myself. I didn't feel like they were supportive of me. I felt insecure being around them. I didn't feel like they really cared for me, and I didn't necessarily care for them. When it comes to relationships, especially relationships and building your confidence, quality over quantity every time. So surround yourself with people who celebrate you, who are excited for what you're doing, and maybe your circle gets small, and then as you acquire more friends, I don't know why I said acquire more friends, that kind of sounds weird, like you're collecting them. But as more people come into your circle and in your space, just be really mindful of who you're letting in. And I always do kind of the feelings test. I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you spend time with someone consistently and after you spend time with them, you feel better, that is a person that you keep. If you feel worse, if you're like, I either feel worse about myself, or I feel like I gave everything and like got nothing, or I feel really like dragged down. If you feel worse, you either have to go or you don't need to put a lot of energy into that. I'll let you decide what you do with neutral people. But keep the people that make you feel good. Like genuinely like feel happy, uplifted, not like, they just like hyped me up. But like you genuinely feel good after you spend time with them. Spend more time with those people. Those are the kind of people you want around you. It will help your confidence. Stop apologizing. What are you apologizing for? I will apologize. If I've done something wrong, I will apologize. I will say, I'm sorry. I apologized to Pork Chop the other day. It's kind of embarrassing for me to, vulnerable for me to share, but like I kind of yelled at him the other day and I felt instant regret. I felt horrible. I was so tired and overstimulated. I was feeling stressed. This isn't me excusing the behavior. This is me explaining the behavior. I was really stressed. We're about to leave on this trip and, James he has this little mini potty because he's potty trained, but he has this little small potty and he kicked the potty full of pee. I hadn't quite gotten to like emptying it. He got mad at me and he kicked the potty and pee went everywhere. And so I snapped at him and I regretted it. And you better believe, I snapped at him because the last thing I needed was pee all over the place. And I felt really bad. And I went back to him and I apologized. And I said, hey, Pork Chop, you know what? Like, I'm really sorry that I yelled at you. It's okay. We've been doing a lot of, parenting, learning, things like that. And they always say, okay the feeling, don't okay the behavior. So for example, it's okay to be frustrated. It's not okay to throw Mr. Potato Head at your sister, which is something that I just said like yesterday. So I did the same thing. I said, you know what, Pork Chop, it's okay for mommy to feel frustrated, but it's not okay for mommy to yell at you like that. I'm so sorry I did that. I hope you can forgive me. You better believe if I do something wrong, I will apologize. I think that's really important. Things I won't apologize for. I'm not going to apologize for just like existing. Even if I bump into someone, I'll be like, oh, excuse me, or pardon me, or, like, oh, are you okay? I'm not going to apologize for having a great idea, for showing up, for, anything. I will apologize if I've done something wrong and I am sorry for something. But do a little audit, especially for my women out there. This is something that I hear from a lot of women, especially my people-pleasing women. Notice how many times you apologize in a day. And then ask yourself, what am I apologizing for? Do I feel genuinely sorry? Did I do something wrong? Or am I just kind of apologizing for existing, for speaking up for whatever it is? Ask yourself, what am I apologizing for? Just kind of stop apologizing unless you genuinely did something wrong and you feel sorry for it. Then by all means, apologize. Something that I learned recently, I was reading The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest, I believe. And she was saying that self-sabotage basically boils down to you believing you don't deserve it. That really stuck with me. I full disclosure, didn't fully finish the book. But even that like little tidbit, so great, like gold, stuck with me. And I was just like, that's the truth. That is the truth. When I'm self-sabotaging, when I'm stopping myself for something, it's because I don't really believe that I deserve it. Whether I don't believe to be happy, deserve to be happy, or I don't deserve these really great things, or I don't deserve to, be seen, whatever it is, that has stuck with me. And it really impacted the way that I saw self-confidence too, because I think a lot of times we self-sabotage because we don't believe we deserve it and we aren't confident in who we are or what we're doing. So I wanted to share that in case that resonates with anyone else too, is that if you're self-sabotaging something, it's because you don't believe that you deserve it. So I don't know, do with that one what you will. Stop putting others above yourself. This is for like my people pleasers, my chronic putting everyone else's needs above your own. You're just telling yourself and you're telling others that your needs don't matter as much as theirs. And I'm not talking about, I think it's important that we be good people, that we, be selfless people, that we help others. It's a cliche, but like you can't pour from an empty cup. Or like when I talk about my pizza, if I've given all 8 slices of my pizza to my family by 9 a.m. in the morning, I'm just going hungry all day. And so I think it's important that we stop chronically putting others above ourselves. And also, have you noticed that the people that we tend to put before ourselves, like, they're not doing much for us? They're not, it's one thing to put your child's need before your own. Or, if someone is always giving for you, filling your cup, then when they need that in return, you give it to them in return. That's totally different. The people that we tend to put our needs below theirs, they aren't doing anything for us. They aren't those people that make us feel amazing and are like soul nourishing people. They're usually the ones that are kind of using us as doormats. They're asking us to do everything because they know we'll just say okay, and we will put their needs above ours. So think about that. Stop putting others' needs above your own, especially when you're putting others' needs above your own basic needs. Like, if your basic needs aren't being met, you're not getting quality sleep, you're not able to, feed yourself, sit down and eat, a meal every once in a while, to breathe, to take a shower, whatever it is, but you're still giving all of that and then some to other people. Why? I personally think a lot of times this boils down to kind of the self-sabotage, but it's because we think that we're not as deserving as others. Or we're trying to give everything to others. This is what I used to do. So this is, me speaking from personal experience. I would do everything for everyone, especially because I was so desperate for friendship and like anyone. I just wanted to like be seen. And so it's like, if I give everything to everyone, if I, bend over backwards for everyone, like maybe then they'll see me and they'll appreciate me and like want to hang out with me or be my friend. And that didn't work. At least not for me. That did not work. I was just devaluing myself in front of everyone else. And it wasn't until I started, bending over backwards and giving to people who would also bend over backwards and give reciprocally. You know what I'm trying to say. They would reciprocate what I was giving to them. They would give it back to me as well. And when I was just a people pleaser, bending over backwards, all of this, I had very low self-esteem, but also I just, I thought that maybe that was the way to get people to like me. It boiled down to this need of wanting to be liked, to not actually giving and doing because it felt right to me, or it was something that I wanted to do, or, it was my turn to give because that person gave last time. No, I just wanted to be liked. And that's not super fulfilling, and it really shook my confidence. So maybe just sitting, meditating, asking yourself, am I putting others' needs above myself? Why are these people that deserve to have all of this from me? Because sometimes they are. Like, absolutely. There are people like, you better believe, like, if Mama Smith is like, I need you to drop everything and do this thing for me, I'm doing it. Like, there are people in my life, Daniela, or as she's known, Aunt Dee Dee in these parts, also logistics manager for a retreat. Like, Aunt Dee Dee, puts up the bat signal, says, I need help, I'm there. I'm doing it. But people who use me as a doormat, people who don't really respect me as a person, we're not necessarily talking about boundaries here, but it's usually the same people. The people who aren't going to respect your boundaries or are going to try to use you as a doormat, the people you're trying to just get to like you or people please your way into their hearts, it's not going to happen because they don't respect you. So forget those people. Stop doing that. Take care of your basic needs. Take care of yourself so then you can show up the best way that you can for those people who do respect you, who do care for you, who will reciprocate that for you as well. And that will really help your confidence when you stop just giving for people who really don't care or respect you that much. It will really help your confidence, I promise. Another thing, I was just talking to a friend about this, but people are not thinking about you as much as you think. So we were talking about, a friend of mine was saying that she was having a hard time because she was worried about what people were going to think about, this and that. And I said, you know what? Like, something that I realized a long time ago is that people really aren't thinking about me the way that I worry that they are. Like, we are all in our own little thought bubbles worrying about, oh, what is someone going to think about this thing or that thing? And like, we are so self-absorbed as individuals. That's kind of how we're designed as human beings. But like, we really are not spending as much time thinking about others as other people are worried that we are. Does that make sense? Like, everyone is dealing with their own stuff. They have their own lives, their own ups and downs, their insecurities, their own confidence journey. They are so in their own stuff that they are probably thinking about you, caring about what you're doing, like a sliver of the amount that you think or worry that they are. And even, apply this to yourself. Like how often are you kind of worrying about other people or thinking about what they're doing or judging what they're doing or thinking, oh, that's weird? Like, hopefully never. But if you are, it's probably not that often. And so the people you're worried about, don't. And also if someone is that like focused on what you're doing 100%, it says more about them than it does you. The people, when I started following my dream and they were so hard on my dream, in hindsight, I now know it's because they had a dream that they never had the courage to follow. And so seeing me pursue mine and to be open with my dreams and to go for it and to be okay with failing publicly and all of that, that was upsetting and triggering to them because they never pursued their dream. And it was usually people that were quite a bit older than I was. And I think that maybe then they were looking around and I just think that was triggering for them. And like that makes me feel sad for them, but that doesn't have to do with me. If I have good intentions, if I'm doing my best, like if me being happy and aligned is upsetting to other people, that's kind of a them thing. Especially when it comes to like confidence, like me being okay with who I am. If that's upsetting to someone else, that makes me feel sad because usually it's because they don't feel that way. And I want that forever. Like I want people to feel good about who they are, to, allow themselves to be seen, to feel like an alignment. I want that for them. So if me doing that is upsetting to them because they don't feel that way, that just makes me feel sad for them. Okay, another thing is physically take up space. Don't be sit up tall, stand up straight, take up space, stop making yourself small. Pay attention to physically, how do you show up places when you walk into a room? Like just stand up straight. Don't be afraid to take up the space that you take up. When someone's talking to you, do you kind of, make yourself smaller? Do your shoulders curl in on one another? Like what's going on there? Notice even your stature. And if you notice that you're making yourself small, stop doing that. It will help your confidence. Like just stand up tall. You don't have to, look like you're walking in like the Hulk. You can if you want to, but like just take up the space that you take up. Let yourself be seen. Just walk in. Sit up straight. Don't make yourself small physically. Don't make yourself small, emotionally or anything like that, but just physically stop making yourself smaller. There's no need to do that. There's no need to do that. It will help your confidence if you just start, standing up, sitting up, walking with confidence. Even if you have to fake it till you make it, I promise it'll help. This is one of those things you could start doing like today, and by tomorrow, you'll maybe feel even like 1% more confident. And then the last note that I had on confidence or confidence tips is ask yourself, who is that inner voice? Is it you or is it someone else? That inner critic, that part of you that's saying, oh, you don't deserve that. Oh, what are people going to think? Oh, that's weird. Are people going to think that's weird? Oh, I hope they aren't like mean to you about that. Is that actually your inner voice or is that someone else? Is that a parent? Is that a past employer? Is that a past partner? Is that someone currently in your life? Or is it really you? I find that your actual true inner voice is usually much more positive, and then those inner critics are sometimes someone else's voice or influenced by past experiences. And so I have found that really diving in and saying, who is that inner voice? Really? Who's talking here? And separating what you truly believe from that inner critical voice that's probably someone else's words or voice, or, someone that's kind of infused themselves into your inner thoughts. Maybe clear your mind, maybe, do a little bit of meditation, and then maybe you journal on this. And you say, who is that inner voice? In those moments where I feel small, where I feel insecure, where I'm not feeling confident, what is that voice saying and who is saying it? And I think that clarity might really, really help you. Okay, baby Poppy woke up from her nap early, so we now have a guest appearance as I wrap this up. Poppy, you have anything to say to the people? You just, whisper to them, a little ASMR. Oh, okay. and she just high-fived the microphone, but there was the sultry breaths of baby Poppy, who is now shaking my coconut water. But I was wrapping up anyways, and baby Poppy and I are going to go hang out for a little bit because you took this puny little nap. But those are my kind of 8 little tips or thoughts on confidence boosters. I think you're really going to enjoy Sunday's meditation. Yeah, that's what I have on confidence and life updates, everything going on. Baby Poppy, you say it's time to go? I hope wherever you are that you're having a great day, and we'll see you on Sunday. You want to say bye-bye? Oh, and one last thing that I forgot. I did just upload a YouTube video, yoga practice. It is a 25-minute yin yoga practice for slowing down. So it coincides with Sunday's slow down meditation. So I'll link to all that in the show notes. If you're like, I need a little yoga, I need some body TLC. I put that together for us. It's on YouTube. I'll link to it. And yes, thank you so much for being here. And I appreciate you, and I hope some of these confidence tips resonated with you, and know that you do deserve it. You so deserve it. You deserve to be confident. And if you can hear that panting, it is not Mila. It is still baby Poppy. So thank you guys for letting me show up as I am today. And I appreciate you.